Shalom Aleichem, friends of the Sephardic congregation of Hellendale. This week's parasha is Parashat Yitro. The beginning of the parasha, Yitro, who was in Midian, he was not part of the process of the exodus of Egypt, although he heard about it. He comes to the desert, to Midbar Sinai, to the Sinai desert, and he reunites with his father-in-law Moshe Rabbeinu. In the next few days, he sees Moshe Rabbeinu sitting and judging the people from morning to evening. Moshe Rabbeinu would sit down, and the rest of the Jewish people would queue and approach Moshe Rabbeinu with all the questions with regards to Jewish law, civil matters, disputes, whatever it may be. Moshe Rabbeinu was the single judge of the Jewish people. And Yitro finds this disturbing. First of all, he says, how could you, Moshe Rabbeinu, this is not sustainable. Moses, Moshe Rabbeinu, you are going to become completely worn out from this process. It is not sustainable. And second of all, he feels that it's a lack of dignity for the Jewish people to have to be standing there on hours on end waiting for adjudication by Moshe Rabbeinu while he sits down. And this is basically Jethro's criticism of Moshe Rabbeinu. In jest, in a joking way, I say that we can see from here that Yitro was destined to convert to Judaism. There's no question that Yitro was going to become a Jew. Think about it. Who else but a Jew would come to town, take the leader who's about to or has received, depending on how one understands the chronological events over here, but someone comes from out of time, a stranger, and he's already advising the king of Israel, the greatest man, how to do things. What a chutzpah! He must have been a Jew, or he must have been destined to be a Jew, because only a Jew would have such chutzpah. But that I say in jest, of course. But on a more serious level, one needs to understand, why is it that Hashem orchestrated events in such a way? Why is it that Hashem, through a foreigner, through Yitro, makes Moshe Rabbeinu, who received, and was about to receive, or had received the greatest wisdom, the Torah, the wisdom of God, the divine spiritual wisdom, why should he be made to almost look silly, almost look unsophisticated? I mean, Yitro advises him to set up an infrastructure of courts, that there should be those that are in charge of 1,000 and 110, and only the most difficult cases should come before Moshe Rabbeinu. Why could Hashem not have given this insight into Moshe Rabbeinu, into Moses himself? Why did it have to be that this insight came about through Yitro, a foreigner? This is a very, very difficult and strange thing to understand. Why Hashem almost made the Jewish people and Moshe Rabbeinu belittled, look little and insignificant in this way. This question is asked on the parasha by the Or HaChaim HaKadosh, the great Or HaChaim, the great scholar, the Or HaChaim HaKadosh. And he answers as follows. Says the Or HaChaim HaKadosh, an amazing insight. And I'm going to read from parts of the Or HaChaim HaKadosh. He says as follows. Says the Or HaChaim, V'nireh, and it appears, Kitam hadavar hu laharot Hashem et bnei Yisrael, that the reason is because Hashem wanted to show the Jewish people, Hadorahu v'chol dor vador, that generation and all future generations, Ki yesh ba'umot gdolim b'havana u'v'haskala, that amongst the nations of the world there is tremendous wisdom. There are great intellectuals amongst the nation of the world. And perhaps, he says later on, even greater than those of the sages of Israel. Why did Hashem want to show that to the Jewish people? In order that they first of all should understand that yesh chochma bagoyim, that the nations of the world have tremendous wisdom and tremendous insight that the Jewish people can use and implore, and one should learn, of course, and respect everybody. But there's a deeper reason. Hashem wanted the Jewish people to know that at this time, right around the time of the receiving of the Torah. Because he says the Or HaChaim HaKadosh, Halamarta ki lo merov chochmat Yisrael v'askalatam bachar Hashem bahem. In order to teach the Jewish people that not because they are smarter than anybody else, not because of their intellectual prowess, did God choose them to lead the Jewish people. Ela lechesed elyon, rather from the great kindness of Hashem, a great lofty kindness of God, ula avat ha'avot, and because God loved the forebearers, the forefathers of the Jewish people, Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. This is what the Or HaChaim HaKadosh says. So what's the lesson for us? The lesson for us is a very simple lesson. The lesson for us as Jews is that we have to know that we received the Torah not because of our intellectual prowess, not because we are more intellectually superior to anybody else. And it was worth belittling Moshe Rabbeinu and Klal Yisrael to teach the Jewish people this lesson, that the reason we received the Torah, the greatest gift, the greatest wisdom, is because of the kindness of God and because He loved the forefathers. And therefore, us as Jews have to understand something and take a very practical lesson from this. And that is that as Jews, we should never, God forbid, feel arrogant. Many Jews have an attitude of arrogance and disdain towards people that are not Jewish. And this has no basis and is wrong. You know, I'll give you an example. If a person is blessed with a tremendous IQ, with high intellectual capacity, is that a justification for that person to be arrogant, to act in a disdainful way towards other people? Of course not. That person's attitude, on the contrary, should be gratitude to God. They did not create that. They did not create the intellect. They were born with it. It was God-given. And their attitude should be one of humility and thanks. So too when it comes to the Jewish people. We should know that we were born Jewish and that Hashem gave us this tremendous gift. And that should make us humble. Because we really perhaps didn't even deserve it or not deserving of it. The reason we have it is out of the kindness of God, that He chose the Jewish people to give the Jewish people this divine wisdom, this Torah. And therefore our attitude should be one of humility and one of gratitude, and never one of arrogance and disdain for the rest of humanity. On the contrary, one should respect the fact that the rest of humanity has a contribution to make and that the rest of humanity has tremendous wisdom. Our role is to use the divine wisdom to be a light unto the nations, to show the nations that through keeping the Torah and through being ethical and honest and respectful and dignified, show them the glory of God, and in that way create the ultimate Kiddush Hashem, the ultimate sanctification of Hashem's names. And we should know that we are only considered the chosen nation of Hashem when we do that. The Torah says in this week's parasha, Hashem says, if you accept my covenant and if you accept my laws, you will be a treasured nation. But that's only when we act and behave the way we're supposed to. May Hashem bless us and help us that we should sanctify His name throughout the world in a way of humility and ethics and honor and dignity. Shabbat Shalom.